Hi everyone. So we're back again, and Sean's on the phone.
Hi guys, how's it going?
One day Sean will be in person. One day,
Yeah,
back in
hopefully soon.
person.
I need some like social interaction. It'd be nice to actually come down one day.
We've been socially isolated for over what? I don't remember the last time I even saw you in person.
Oh, it's got to be like at least 6 weeks now. Like at least I think.
It has to be even longer than that, I feel.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember last time I was at your place, I was in a t-shirt, so it must have been a little while ago.
Exactly.
I mean, I went to physiotherapy last night, and I was excited for the social interaction part of
It's
it.
like,
So
hi. Okay, you need to calm down.
I know I'm all excited. I'm like, look at me, like I'm going out and doing stuff, like living my life. Yeah, it was weird. But while I was there, actually, for some kind of neck issues that I've been dealing with for a long time, um, while my physiotherapist was doing his kind of overall assessment of, treatment ideas and kind of where my body was at, he told me that my left side was extremely dominant and overcompensating for my right side. So my left side's actually pulling a lot of the muscles from my right side out of place, and my right side is weaker and kind of allowing the left side to be dominant. Nothing's kind of balancing out there. I am right-handed, so I found that very interesting. But it kind of got my, you know, mind going a little bit on some of the stuff we had talked about before versus like your left side of your brain and your right side of your brain and like the corresponding thought patterns and potentially negativity or positivity coming out of that. And I'm just curious and wanted to kind of pick your brain about it again and kind of touch base on it and see if that could help anybody dealing with any additional like holiday stress as well.
Well, yeah, because we were talking about, the brain, which is high, the left brain has automatic negative thoughts, so we have to be cognizant of that. And so it obviously makes sense because, the last part of that was the what if. So you could possibly be stressing about what if I can't do something? What if this doesn't work out? You know,
Oh,
or
absolutely. I mean, I'm in the middle of that right now with the career change a little bit, right? Like those are exact thoughts that I'm dealing with on a daily basis and just kind of going, and I mean, I'm just trying not to give those thoughts any power over me, but they definitely are thoughts that are still present and quite relevant in my life right now. So very interesting.
well, it's also the same thing that we were talking about even before. I think a couple podcasts ago about how you know we have to really recognize that things that we were taught, like we always say we're not blaming our parents. They just were doing the best they can, and they were parenting how they were parented. And so it's up to us to kind of like break, to recognize it, understand where it came from, and then do better, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it could possibly be that same thing. So like as much as you've done like leaps and strides into like, look, I'm not falling into this cookie cutter pattern that has been, kind of passed on from your father. You're kind of like breaking out of a complete comfort zone and on your own. Like this is sort of, it's like you versus you, right? Like you're kind of being your own cheerleader and saying, look, this is really what I want. I'm going to take the chance. And then of course you have to be aware that subconsciously deep down it's probably a nagging thing that your dad's saying, what did I tell you? Stick with what you know, and like that
Oh,
old pattern. So that's
exactly.
probably what's happening.
I agree completely. And, even just you stating that, like some stuff was kind of flashing into my mind and kind of made me realize that I got into a very high skill, high risk career very young that would be intimidating for a lot of people. but I always had my dad there that I was able to bounce ideas off of and kind of talk through processes that I didn't quite understand. And, you know, he was always there to kind of help me progress much quicker than potentially a lot of people without that added resource were able to do. So I'm used to very kind of rapid growth when it comes to learning and kind of mastering something, because I had somebody that you know had been an all-star for like 40 years and you know he's exceptional at what he does. And this is the first time ever in my adult life where, you know, already in the field that I'm looking to enter, just with the schooling I've done and the research I've done, I'm now more of the expert in comparison to him. And it's very strange not having somebody that, you know, I can kind of bounce some of those insecurities off of without him having all the answers. Don't get me wrong, he's been very good at, you know, giving me praise and telling me, hey, you're doing a great job, like it takes a lot of guts to do this, and he's very on board with it, which I didn't expect him to be at first, but now that I've kind of made the steps I have, he's definitely on board with it. But it's still, you know, it's very strange for me not to have somebody that I'm like, hey, let me bounce this idea off you. Like, what do you think? Because I know you know what you're talking about, and I need that verification to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just new. Everything's so new, and I'm in the midst of, you know, trying not to be paralyzed by, you know, I'm using quotations here. I don't know if they can see me, but you know, the
air
fear.
Quotes.
Yeah, you know, the air quotes here. You know, the fear or anything along those lines of, you know, failure, which we've discussed before as being.
And that's a left brain thought, right?
Exactly. And it's very strange because I'm like, oh my God, like what if I fail? And then, you know, 2 minutes later, I'm like, well, like you're going to have to fail in order to learn. So like, just keep going. And it's a very, I'm happy because I'm able to kind of combat some of those thoughts when I acknowledge them and when I notice their presence. But they're definitely still there in the undertone of things. So it's very interesting. No matter how many leaps and bounds I've done, personal growth wise over the last year, you know, there's still a lot of those core demons that I still got to kind of beat off with a stick once in a while.
Well, I just posted something today, and it was it's something Will Smith. You know, there's people who love Will Smith, and there's people who, you know, think he's an egomaniac, which makes me laugh because I'm like, anybody who's sure of themselves or confident, you label egomaniac. But I don't know. I like him, so you know, maybe I'm biased. But he said something that resonated with me today, and he was just saying the same type of thing. Like, you have to be prepared to fail because that's where you learn. And when you don't want to fail, you're gonna stop learning, right? And it's not a failure. You know, we spoke about that in counseling. Like, you know, a rejection is a redirection. Like, there's no such thing as failure, in my opinion, right? Because it's going to, either you learn a lesson, which is extremely valuable because wisdom comes from your I guess your perceived failures. That's where you build wisdom, right? So when your parents, you know, when we kind of like roll our eyes when your parents are always right, and you're like, oh my God, how are they always right? Like, how do they have 100% rate? You know, it's so annoying, right? Like, it's so annoying.
Yeah, it's almost like they've lived through these situations before.
I wonder where that came from. It's bizarre. Like, you know, but clearly it's, you know, when we're young and headstrong, we're like, oh my God, but we have to learn. You know, my mom used to always say, and there's like, I guess, and I'm sure it's a Caribbean statement, but like it's a Trini statement where those who can't learn will feel, right? Those who can't hear, will feel, right? That's what she always used to say, because it's the same thing. They're telling you and you're not listening. But of course, when you go through it, you're definitely going to learn. But you have to go through it. Like, you can't have an instruction. There is no instruction manual of life. So, you know, we've sort of made we've made a complete capitalistic industry on self-help, which is ironic because of the term self, right? Like,
yeah,
like it's an oxymoron. But I mean, you know, you could kind of like look at mentors and people who've apparently made it. But if you really dig deep at an actual mentor, it's a person who's gone through it. It's a person who's maybe experienced hardship and had to learn, or didn't have a guide, or, and now they kind of understand more. Because, like, yeah, young Will Smith, like, if we're going back to that reference, he wasn't, as I don't know, I just find him very relatable now. And it's because he's been through things. He's grown. He's older. He understands life more. And so today he was saying, well, not today, but like, and the message was, stop trying to, like, people, like, success doesn't come with being great at something, right? Like, automatically you're just gifted at something, as you know, because when you started, you weren't as skilled as you definitely are now.
Oh, definitely.
In ironwork. But it's looking at, like, okay, well, let's say he said, he used the analogy of building a wall. Say you want to build a wall, but you have no idea how to build the wall. So you just get in your head again, oh my God, how am I going to build this wall? I want to build the greatest wall. He said, why don't you just decide that you're going to lay one brick and it's going to be the best brick that you're going to lay. So basically, take one task at a time and stop looking at, like, I have to be the greatest at this. Success is basically consistency. That's what he's basically saying.
Yes, and that's something that I'm kind of working through right now, where, there's definitely that overall kind of daunting, like, are you sure you got this, kind of left brain negativity thought, which, there's a part of me that feels like it's kind of like a fight or flight response a little bit, where it's like, you should get out now before you get in over your head. You know what I mean? And then the other side of me is all you have to do is take one step in the right direction.
Right, because it says you're doing
then take another step. Like,
yeah, you're doing the fortune telling thing. You're predicting the future negatively. Like, I'm sunk. I can't do this. I can't do this.
Exactly. And that's something that, I'm slowly starting to figure out is, hey, listen, like, there's very few people out there in life that are going to give you a helping hand. Realistically speaking, you have to be self-motivated and self-driven to do the things that you want to do. And, that might not line up with everybody else's ideas on what's right or what's wrong. But the difference is, like, if you do what you want to do, you will eventually do it well, and you will be much happier for it. So, I'm in a really weird place where I have a lot of the positive thoughts and I have a lot of the negative thoughts, and I'm kind of like, okay, let's, every time I feel myself kind of being sucked into the negative gutter, I'm like, let's just kind of redirect over to the positive and, like, keep going.
And okay, so this is what I would tell you if you were coming to me. I would say, okay, just pass your exam first.
Oh, literally, right?
Like, one step at a time.
Yeah, like, it's so... I find
you're already so at the end, and you haven't even started.
I know, right? It's so funny, because it's just like, my brain's like, man, you just got to pass your exam, and then the other side of me is just like, once you pass your exam, like, that's where it really starts. Like, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
I know, because now,
and I'm like, oh,
you're already spiraling. Like, it's like, oh my God,
exactly.
This is real. It's becoming real. Like, oh no.
It's like, it's so crazy, because it's just like, I kind of, it's something that I've been kind of manifesting and kind of working towards mentally for so long, and then it's starting to get close, and I'm like, oh my God, am I getting cold feet?
No,
it's
like,
just,
no,
you're not.
Have.
Like, let's go.
It's stage fright. You just have stage fright.
Literally. And I know that once I get into that kind of working atmosphere where, I have somebody with me that's kind of helping me out a little bit, and I can kind of dive in and really start to learn the craft, that's where I'll be super happy, super excited, and I'll start to thrive. But yeah, it's so interesting where the negativity that you're producing yourself can kind of create that barrier or that wall that you quit before you even really try if you don't acknowledge that it's there or realize that those thoughts are there. Well, and it makes me understand a lot more why a lot of people are kind of stuck in situations they don't want to be in.
Well, it's the same thing. Like, I had my stuff ready to go, like my because the dissertation is broken into like several parts, right? So the one before that one that I'm embarking on now, you had to submit. You had to do it was like a lot of work, and then you submit it to a review board, right? So I'm like, okay, well, everything's done, but I'm trying to stall because I heard that the review board could be like it could be stressful. Like, they might reject your thing, and you might have to rewrite. Like, it's a lot, right? So of course, same thing. Your left brain. Oh my God. Okay. And then I finally sent it in, and I'm like, and then people who have done this before had said, okay, well, it takes a while. Even my prof was like, there's a 2-week turnaround time, and you just have to hope you get that approval. So I was like, okay, well, I have 2 weeks, okay. And then when they got back to me in a week, I was like, oh my God, this is real now. Like, oh wow, okay, like, right?
Oh, literally, yep.
And it's the same thing. It's okay, well, now it's a go. Okay, got to do that, So I don't know if it's the negative thought or it's the realization that this is hard, this is work. Like, because you're thinking about the end, but you still have to pass your exam.
Oh, exactly. I know. And it's just, I find it funny because like when I talk, and this is why I personally love therapy, is because when I talk it out, I realize how dumb it sounds.
A lot of people say that. I go, did you hear yourself out loud? Did you hear that?
Like literally, and that's something that I've taken away from our sessions that I've now applied to my relationship. Is if something's bothering me, I immediately voice it to my partner, and then there's been multiple times where like I've said something that was eating me alive, and I'll say it, and as soon as it's out in the world in like an actual audible, like I've expressed it to somebody, I'm like, I'll literally look at her and be like, I really appreciate you listening to that, but like, wow. And she's like, yeah, you understand how ridiculous that sounds, right? I'm like, I can't even, like, it's hard to even express to you how, shocking it is that I was, terrified of this, and now it's just like a joke. It to me, like, as soon as I voice it, a lot of times, and that's one of the reasons why journaling was so effective for me, is it's a very similar situation. It's not necessarily voicing it, but, it's getting it out of, the negative thoughts out of my mind onto paper where, I read them back and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of just garbage. It's just a lot of garbage. and now it's out. You know what I mean? It's like I cleaned out the fridge or whatever. Like, it's just gone. Like, let's just nice and clear-minded now. Like, let's move forward. It's just interesting. I never thought that those, just as a young male, you know what I mean? Like, I was not necessarily taught to talk about a lot of emotion or feelings.
Well,
so to me, to actually voice those and get a certain level of relief and, growth out of it is shocking and incredibly satisfying at the same time.
It's funny because it's not, I don't know if necessarily it's just a man thing, because I haven't been telling anybody, but I might as well just say it. I've been working on my 4th book, right? And it's about grief, obviously, like for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been actually helpful because it's the same type of thing. Like, as you're grieving and I'm counseling people that are grieving, it's sort of helping me process that whole grieving process. And I don't know if it's just a male thing, because I was raised that way. Even though my mom was super emotional, it wasn't. I don't know. For lack of I don't know how to articulate this where it doesn't sound like, because people will. It wasn't encouraged basically to express emotion in my family.
I think for a very long time, emotions were kind of, especially public emotions, were kind of a sign of weakness for a lot of people, or that was the idea behind it. So-and-so couldn't keep it together and, started crying out in public, or whatever it may be. And I think now we're starting to kind of finally transition into an era where, emotions are kind of celebrated, and, it's something to be embraced, and it's something to learn. I mean, after we started talking, the amount of emotions that, I started experiencing and was literally trying to pinpoint what the emotion was, why I was feeling it, because for a long time I didn't really feel much of anything. I felt very numb. So when I started allowing emotions back in and started kind of flooding myself with this stuff, like it was a lot. And it took a while to kind of understand and be able to process. But now it's like, no, I don't know. I don't run from them anymore. I kind of try to embrace them a little bit.
Well, again, it's a lot of, I find this is why it's so healthy to kind of figure out where the root cause of who you are as a person, like when you become an adult. It's a very good process to figure out and unlearn, some things that no longer serve you, right? Like that same thing. I was raised in a very strict household where, that old adage of children are seen and not heard, right? Like, you can never talk back to your parents because that was disrespectful. Everything was very disrespectful. Like, don't be, and so I had to unlearn that and find a way to be assertive, not aggressive, right? And that's hard too, because when you have been sort of raised where, speak when you're spoken to, and you can never advocate for yourself because your parents aren't interested in your advocating, right? They're completely disinterested. So to learn, and the irony of the, like, for the last 20 years of my mom's life, like that's all I was doing was advocating for her, right? So the irony. So I had to learn that quickly to become assertive and not aggressive. So I think there's something to be said where if you're dealing, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but it just came into my brain, of when you're dealing maybe with somebody that seems to be so aggressive or combative or adversarial, maybe it's not necessarily because they are like that, or maybe it has something to do with their childhood and how they were raised, and they were never allowed to articulate their point, so they didn't learn how to be assertive, right?
Well, I that's a very interesting point, and I think, from some of the stuff I've witnessed throughout society is, I feel like society, whenever there is a change that's implemented, from what I've experienced, it's always a very harsh and swift change. So it will take a while for the dominoes to fall, but once they start, it's very quick. And I feel like quite often there's almost an overcorrection, and then we kind of find a balance.
Right.
That's just from my own experience. That's kind of how I feel. So when we go from, your generation and how you describe your childhood to, the newer generations, you kind of lived through that. So there's the potential that you didn't want kind of the exact same thing for your kids. So you might have not saying you did, but there's the potential that you kind of potentially baby them a little bit more, gave them everything you possibly could, kind of really, really overcompensated for some things potentially.
I think a lot of parents do that, and I can't say I have. Honestly, it just seems like a lifetime ago. Even though my son's 21, it just seems like I'm like how like what everything is a blur, and it's.
Oh, it's such
I know
a crazy...
I went through everything, but I'm just thinking, okay. I know I did. He knows he has to present. I know I made him present a case. So like if he wanted something, he had to give me 3 quotes. Like I was an insurance company. He had to give me 3 quotes and he had to sell me. Like he always had to sell me on something. I go, okay, sell me.
I love that though. That's a great idea. I mean, I just look at it as, I think we're consistently moving in the right direction with a lot of things. And I think, there's definitely the one extreme to the other extreme, but we do tend to find a balance eventually. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you want your children to be, I know I would want my child to be, respectful to, authority figures and adults, but I don't want them to be blindly respectful. I want them to still be able to feel powerful enough to, question some things and determine their own ideologies. And it's a very fine line to be able to walk that where, to have the, okay, you need to be respectful, but at the same time, like, don't just lay down and take it. It's a very, you know what I mean?
I remember one time, so this just popped into my head. I was so angry, and probably because, and it takes a lot for me to just like especially with my son, to like start like raising my voice, right? Like it takes a lot, and because I never had to really punish him because he was always, and I'm not being biased here, he was always really a pretty good kid, right? So there was one time, I don't know what it was about, but it must have been, I've told him so many times, it was the same discussion. And of course, when you're here, you're having another discussion, I was raising my voice, and he looked at me, and this was this had to have been at least 5 years ago. He looked at me and he said, "You don't have to speak to me like that." And I didn't know what to say. I was like, well, I didn't start this way.
That's great. I love that.
And I'm like, oh my God. I go, and you're absolutely right. I'm yelling it. You're absolutely right. But when did you become so logical? Oh. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes, like, wow, like, he's so right. I do not have to speak to him like that.
I mean, I feel like you're human, and these things happen. I mean, nobody's perfect, and this is, whatever, you want social media to think, or, some people in your lives to think, like, nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to get upset with their kids at some point in time. You're human. I mean, it is what it is.
You know what's weird, too, and I'm going to give you this tidbit, too. Like, when we look at our parents and, like, in my case, of course, these little things come back flooding in, which I'm so happy about, because it's taken so many years for me to remember my mom how she was. Like for my dad, it was easy because I guess when he passed away, he wasn't sick, right? So it was just a massive heart attack and he was gone. So all his stuff over the years always comes back, right? Like I remember it, and I tell Jalen all the time, oh, your grandfather used to say this, and your grandfather, it's like we joke around all the time. But like for my mom, it's taken so long because she was so sick for so long, right? So, but the other day, I find myself, I'm a mini Marlene now, like, and it's scary. So, she used to, when my brother and I were in the house, she used to be talking, we'd be upstairs, and my brother would be like, who's she talking to? I'm like, I don't know, we're upstairs, right? Like, because, when she got frustrated, she would just talk out loud. Oh my God, will just clean the house. I'll come from my other job and punch into this job, like, and I find I'm saying the same thing. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, it's okay. I'll just, I'll unpack the dishwasher. You rest, like. And Jalen's upstairs, so it's like, who am I speaking to? Who really am I speaking to?
I mean, I feel like everybody can be there. Like, this is one thing, and this is, I love both my parents dearly, dearly. But one of the reasons I actually decided to go to therapy was honestly because I felt like I was starting to become my parents. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. I just mean like they instilled a lot of really positive, healthy things within us.
Agreed.
And that's something that like I cherish, and I'm really proud of my upbringing. But because they're flawed human beings, because they're human beings, they definitely have some characteristics within the two of them that aren't healthy.
And they were learning too.
Those.
And they
exactly.
they didn't believe in therapy, so they were really just winging it. Let's be honest.
Oh, exactly. Like they're like, I'm almost 30 years old now, and like I'm still waiting for somebody to be like, so how do you actually be an adult? Like I remember being a kid looking up and being like, oh man, he's 25. He must know what's going on in the world. No way, man. We're all just winging it. So
I'm still learning. I'm still learning, and I'm going to be 52 on Monday. So
my mom stresses out about absolutely everything and has no healthy way of relieving stress. She holds on to a lot of it. And, we've kind of touched base a couple times on the fact that I get a lot of headaches. Those headaches are stress related. I do the same thing. I watched her go through it. That's how I subconsciously decided to process stress. Now I'm working on getting healthier ways of doing so. My dad is a very antisocial kind of person. He's very quiet, very reserved. He's, engaging while he's at work, but if he doesn't have to be in a social situation, he does not go into a social situation. And these are characteristics that, as I got older, I realized like, oh, these are starting to take over a little bit. And, as much as I love my parents, I do not want to become my parent. So that was one of the factors of me going to therapy, was like, I need to figure out how to like combat some of these, forces that are kind of bringing me to an end result that I can already see and I'm not happy with.
I'm laughing because I'm remembering my dad would be, his famous thing was, don't psychoanalyze me,
Yeah. Right?
And now I get paid to do it. So who's laughing now, George?
I mean, I had those conversations with my dad at work a couple times, like after going to therapy and kind of figuring out some stuff with myself. And like, I go back to him and be like, hey, listen, you need to work on some of this stuff.
We need to talk.
And, yeah, we need to talk about it. Like, are you sure? And he's like, hey, listen, like, if I'm not happy with myself, I'll put in some work, but I'm good. And I'm like, okay, man, like, all the power to you. But like, it's just very interesting that, I got a lot of really healthy things from them. And I also picked up, some of the baggage that they might not have even realized was there. And it's obvious that they didn't try to instill these behaviors in me. But, when you're in a household with somebody for as long as it takes to raise kids, I mean, they're going to pick up on some of those negative, bad habits of yours. And that's just life. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. So that's, I think, why therapy is, again, something that's really important, is to kind of combat some of these subconsciously, I don't want to call them negative habits, but they're definitely not the healthiest.
Well, you have you have to retrain your brain.
Right? Yeah, exactly, right? So I think it's just, I like to refer to it as rewire. So,
but then the best part is you know where it's coming from. So they're not automatic thoughts, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, that's like, no, that's not right. What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? It's just a thought. Like thoughts, I keep reiterating this, and I tell my clients this. Thoughts are not real. They're not real.
Yeah, not at all.
So if you think about what you're thinking about, you have to think, okay, why am I thinking this thought? It's completely not real. That's why meditation And if you know, because like people are probably rolling their eyes, yeah, meditation. Okay, if you can't meditate, why not just look? That's why they say go outdoors. That's why they say exercise. That's why it's because when you're doing something other than thinking, it's giving your brain a rest. And then you could focus completely on the present. The fact when you're thinking about either the future or the past. That's why it's trying to train your brain into the now. Because that's all you have control over. You don't have control over either the past or the future, right? So if you don't like the term meditation because you think it's, oh my God, you know, here we go again with this meditation. It's really, if you want to call it something else, call it
like a thought control exercise.
That's why they say, or that's why they say listening to music, because if you can completely absorb yourself into the music, you're still not thinking. You're not thinking of anything else. You're relaxing your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a really healthy way to be able to acknowledge thoughts that may enter the brain, but not necessarily become involved with those thoughts, so to speak. So, like, you're like, oh, that's a negative thought. Okay, well, we don't want that. Like, let's kind of get rid of that, and we'll just move forward, versus a negative thought kind of creeping in and kind of festering and kind of growing a little bit. That's something I've noticed anyway whenever I do it, is my ability to kind of swipe away unnecessary thoughts becomes greatly enhanced.
Yeah.
So just the ability to kind of acknowledge, oh, okay, like, yep, okay, that's a thought. I don't like that one. That's not productive in what I'm trying to accomplish, and kind of move forward. It really, therapy really helped teach me that, you know, your perception can very quickly become your reality. So, you know, if you're perceiving the world through a very negative state of mind because you're not in control.
Yeah, you're going to attract it.
Exactly. Your world will become negative. Don't get me wrong. Like, my parents always used to say, like, you know, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. And it's very much, you know, you are what you think you are.
And then people, there's memes I see, well, I didn't eat anxiety, depression.
Literally, right? You know, did I eat
back pain? I didn't eat that, so I don't know where that's coming from.
You know, you are the person you think you are. So if you think you're somebody that is capable of greatness, you know, you can accomplish greatness. But if you think of somebody, you know, if you think you're somebody that's, you know, not adequate, or somebody that isn't going to be able to accomplish the goals you've, you know, set for yourself, you're shooting yourself in the foot before you even start the race. So perception goes a long way, and it's something that, you know, I definitely struggle with. And, you know, it could be confidence issues. It could be a lot of things that kind of build into it. But, you know, if you look in the mirror every day and you see somebody you don't like, it's going to be a struggle to accomplish anything. You got to start kind of chipping away at that. In my opinion, anyway, from my experience, that's the way it is. You kind of have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what, I like this person. This person can accomplish what he sets out to do. Like, let's get after it.
It's the same thing too, and this is what people don't understand. You keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. So if you don't like your life right now, look around. What are you surrounding yourself with? And that means everything. People, social media, what are you watching? What are you listening to? And then you have to make a conscientious decision. Well, like, I don't want to live that life, so I have to make some serious changes. And even if that's going like a solo, like if I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to cut everything off right now, and I'm just going to be alone with myself to make sure I'm good. And then I want to attract what I am. So obviously, again, so go back to what you just said. If I'm in a negative headspace, it means that I'm attracting people that are negative. I'm watching things that are negative. I'm absorbing things that are negative. So I need to cut those off and reevaluate, right?
Yeah, if not, you're just perpetuating the cycle.
Right. And so, you know, I like I just feel like people have to be prepared to do that, and some people just aren't.
Well,
So,
I remember when I had the conversation with my ex, um, about how, I was very unhappy in a lot of aspects in life. Um, Relationship I was not happy in, my career I was not happy in, and a lot of things. And she was quite obviously upset when I was breaking up with her, and she had told me, instead of eliminating me first, why don't you try a different career first and see if you end up in a happier state of mind, which then may help the relationship. Um, and that may be a very valid point for a lot of people, but I was in a situation where I was quite done with the relationship, and for me, I knew that needed to be the first step.
well,
And
it's ironic that she said that, because I wonder if she was honest with herself. Was If you weren't happy, she couldn't have been happy.
yeah, I think she was very much still holding on to the person I was when we first met, and not necessarily how life was going day by day. But I mean, the strange part for me is after the relationship ended and stuff kind of slowly started moving forward the way I wanted it to, work became much more bearable for me for quite a while. Actually, there was a small window there where I actually thought, is this something I could actually keep doing for forever? And then after the initial rush of, all the serotonin and dopamine and all that stuff from like initiating a massive change in my life kind of wore off, the dust started to settle, and I again started thinking, okay, I need out of this. And that's when I, started working my way out of that career again. But it was a very interesting point by her, and in some situations, that could have very possibly worked. I mean, if you're in a very negative work environment, it's going to be very difficult to be positive at home. I was just in a negative home environment and in a negative work environment, and literally would sit in my car in the driveway for 25 minutes every day when I got home because I didn't want to go inside. So when you have no space,
well, it's so funny that
safe,
you say that. I used to be in traffic, and and then that it's really no traffic. It's just somebody driving extremely slow on the highway, and I'm like, you hate your life. I've been psychoanalyzing people in their cars.
Oh, literally. Yeah.
Like, you're not in a rush to get home. I'm literally in a rush to get home, and you're just like cruising, and there's no traffic. But you obviously don't, or you're not in a rush to get home.
Well, I was in a rush to get home. Like I was like, hey, like I get home, like drive, try to avoid traffic, and then I get home, and I just sit in the car for like 25 minutes, and she'd be like, I get in touch. She's like, what are you doing out there? And I'm like, oh, so and so called, and we were just chatting. In reality, I was just sitting there listening to music, being like, "Oh, here we go."
I know, hyping yourself
and a lot
up.
of it was, a lot of it was just that was my only time that I was in an environment that I didn't, hate being in. So yeah, it was interesting.
I feel as though I'm not saying, and we're not saying, let's be clear, we're not saying, hey, you better analyze your relationship, it's obviously terrible, and that's not the message here at all.
No, not at all.
It's just to be very comfortable with who you are. That's it. That's the message.
Yeah, I think confidence, like true confidence, goes a long way in loving who you are and being comfortable with yourself and realizing your own self-value and self-worth.
Well, because this is another thing, and it happens, I can honestly say I'm feeling like that now, and it took a long time to find out, I think there's, I don't know, I'm not going to pinpoint the exact age it was, but I know it was early 20s where you knew you were pretty confident, you knew who you were, and I could really sense that was my personality, right? Because life was good, I was in university, And then, of course, the series of events that happened, you know, you get knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked, and then, you know, eventually you're just like, you don't even know who you are anymore. And now you're, you know, you're on borrowed time now, and people laugh and they're like, oh my God, how do you say that? I'm like, wow, like, do you have a crystal ball? Like, you know when your time's up? Like, we're not promised. Like, I don't have a stamp that says I have 80 years on this planet or 90 years on this planet, you know? I don't know. I don't know when, you know, the plug's going to be pulled. I don't know, right? So, you know, the fact that I'm this age, I'm like, wow, okay, good, all right, good to know. But I mean, it took a long time to figure out, okay, to get that confidence back and to be like, yeah, I'm pretty much a big deal. I'm pretty much a big deal. I'm, you know, my own big deal, mind you. But I mean, I'm 100% confident in myself now. And that took a long time. And so obviously where that comes is I know what I'm worth. Right? So my standards are going to be higher, you know? I'm going to value my time more. So like I only want to be, and I don't care how this is received, but I only want to be around people that are in like this like-minded, right? Like, and I mean like-minded in terms of there's a great exchange, there's an intellectual exchange. There's, these people are so positive and focused, and you know.
I agree. I mean, I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. I also think, you know, that happens naturally for a lot of people, and you know, either in a positive way or you know, a negative way. But I mean, the older everybody always used to tell me, you know, the older you get, the smaller your circle.
Of course, my circle's like a dot.
Yeah, and like it's really, really true. There's a lot of people in my life that have just kind of fallen away, or like, to be completely honest, I was the one that kind of fell away. But there are still, you know, those couple core friends that are there. And I mean, those are the people that, you know, it takes, you know, you might not see them for 6 months, and then you see them and it's like you guys pick up right where you left off, you know, not a beat is missed.
And this is the part that where people get confused, and I'm sorry to interject, but like,
oh no, go.
This is not an elitist attitude, because you know, it's not like, oh well, I'm only going to talk to these people on my level. So my level is positivity, or I'm learning something from somebody. You know, they're motivating, they're caring, they're compassionate. That's my level, like, right? So, you know. It's not a financial level. It's not an educational level. You know what I mean?
No, and that's a great point.
It's a character level. That's what I mean.
And that's it. That's one of the fundamental things that my parents kind of instilled into all of their kids was, you know, we were raised in a household where you didn't judge anybody by anything other than the character that they presented themselves with. So, you know, if somebody decided that, you know, they're going to present themselves as a very positive person into the world, and that's who they're going to be. That's what we,
exactly,
you know, made our conscious choice about them based on.
My dad, when we lived in Trinidad, he used to call everyone, "Hey, Chief," and I'm like, I used to say, "Do you know that person?" Because everyone he would greet like, "Hey, Chief, hey, Chief." I'm like, "Do you know who that is?" He's like, "No." I go, "Then why are you calling them chief?" He goes, "I give everyone the same rank."
Yeah, my dad is famous for that. He always does it. Very similar. Calls everybody boss. And it's funny because, like, he'll be on a job site and he's the boss. But, like, he'll tell, like, a first-year apprentice, he's like, "Okay, boss, like, I need you to go over here and do this." And I'm, like, looking at him, like, what are you doing? He's like, "I don't know." He's like, for him, it's just a very quick, easy way to show that, like, he's like, I might have more experience, but I still respect you and what you're doing. That's the way he goes about it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's how I was raised. We don't, you know, it was, I never knew it, to the point where, like, and not, again, you know, in Trinidad, like, a lot of people have gardeners, right? Like, landscapers, right? So, but then my dad would be out there head in head with the landscaper. And I'm like, okay, so then, okay, like that's just who he was, right? Like it's not, so that's kind of like, you, even when you have help or whatever, you help, even though you're paying that person. That's how I was raised. It's never a hierarchy, is basically how,
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that is a serious advantage when it comes to life, is to understand that, no matter the amount of success,
exactly,
the hustle and the empathy never stops. So, if you no matter how successful you become, you have that mindset, you keep going, right? You just keep going. And like for empathy, I think empathy right now is, for me personally, I think it's one of the things that's missing most from society, is the ability to, look at a neighbor and be like, hey man, I feel you. Like I understand where you're coming from.
You know what it is? It's not what's missing. What's missing is that you do that in silence. I think what people are doing now is they're, hey, look at me. I'm so compassionate. Hey, look at me. I did this. Hey, look at me. I found out things about my dad at his funeral from, that the priest who was, officiating said, he admired my dad because he was so high in business, yet he was coaching a basketball team, and I didn't even know he was coaching a basketball team. Like for youth, like he was just doing this and I never knew. So it's I think it goes to character. If you want to help your neighbor, but you have to put it on social media that you helped your neighbor, or you did something for someone, but you had to take a picture of it that you did it. I think that's what's missing. It's people are doing it, but for accolades. Like doing it in silence. Like,
I think if you are expressing any level of empathy and expecting a positive, reassuring response from multiple people, or you're looking for some form of praise, like you're going about everything the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like you should be empathetic and you should be caring towards people, not because you're looking for validation.
It's because it's your character.
Because that's who you are as a person.
Right. You're kind just because you're kind, right?
Exactly. Like, I grew up, my dad's thing was like, he shoveled driveways for people constantly. In the neighborhood we grew up with, I grew up in, there was a mix between, kind of young families that were our age and some elderly people that had been there for quite some time. And, we had two elderly neighbors, and like my dad, every time it snowed, shoveled their driveway immediately. Never knocked, never did anything, never asked for a thank you. Like he just did it because he's like, somebody should do it. Like, somebody needs to respect the fact that they're a little bit older and, go after it and help them out. I mean, I remember distinctively, he was on a job site. There was like a Tim Hortons like down the block. So a bunch of the guys walked down there one lunch for a coffee, and my dad just happened to be the last one, so he was trailing behind. And everybody he worked with walked past an older lady who was shoveling her driveway and visibly struggling. And my dad stopped and shoveled her driveway for her. And then, proceeded to go get his coffee. And when he came back, he yelled at every single guy he worked with and was like, what do you guys do? You guys walk by somebody that's struggling like that and you don't even offer to help?
See,
like, come on, man. Like, you can't be that in your own, world that you can just walk past somebody.
But see how we kind of circled back exactly. I love this. We basically spoke about the things that, that we're like, that our parents did. And we're like, maybe I don't want to follow that too much. But we look at the things that we do want, that they've showed us, that they didn't tell us, they demonstrated. And that's what I can't stress enough, that your children will not listen to what you say, they'll watch what you do.
Oh, literally.
And I always knew that, obviously growing up, and I was very aware of that. Like, and I used to say that, oh my God, there's lots of things, like, I even now, like, there's lots of things I'd love to post. I see things and they're so funny, but they're so rude, but I won't post them because my son is on my social media, you know? And it's the same thing, but you would think, oh, well, so what? Yeah, he's an adult. Yeah, but still, like, I don't want, it's a character thing, right? Like,
yep.
It's a character thing. You're always on, and I think parents, once you have decided to be a parent, you're always on. You have to just know that. Like, it's a lifelong commitment. You signed up for it, and you're always on.
I've been very fortunate with my mother and father, in the fact that they were always exceptional at parenting when they needed to parent, and being that open ear and just listening when they needed to listen. And I remember quite a few times when I was 16, 17, 18, kind of going through that kind of rebellious kind of party phase and having fun. They weren't overly restricting, but they made sure, like, hey, be safe, don't do anything stupid. We know you're going to do what you want to do regardless, because you're kind of entering into this adulthood kind of thing. But we want you to know that, no matter what the situation, we are a phone call away. You can always call us. Don't be scared to have a conversation. We're here to help you. We understand you need to learn your own lessons. And, I got very lucky in that element where I was able to go out and kind of do what I wanted to do to a certain extent and never feel like I needed to hide it. And I was able to talk through it. And I kind of transitioned out of that phase quite quickly, I think, because it didn't necessarily feel rebellious. It just felt like a lifestyle that I didn't necessarily want to live anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to parent. I think a lot of it comes down to, just who you are as a person and trying to instill the things that you're really happy and proud and love about yourself, and at the same time kind of work on some of the stuff that you're not so proud of yourself about, because I think a lot of parenting is exactly what you just said. It's, they're watching what you do. So you need to lead
not
by
what you
example.
say. You could say a million things, but actions speak louder than words, right? So they're gonna
100%,
like
100%,
right?
And I mean that comes down to, I've had that conversation with my partner. I mean, my partner has told me a couple times that having somebody that follows through on what they say they're going to do is really refreshing, because actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Anybody can say whatever they want to appease a partner, but to actually follow through on that goes a long way.
I know this sounds ironic because I write, but I mean, I'm more about actions and consistency, and I demonstrate my affection or my compassion or caring through action, not words, right?
Yes, yeah, my partner is the exact same way. She is very little words of affirmation.
I'm not a big, I love you, or
no.
I'm not, that's not my thing. That's not my love language, as they call it.
Yeah, she is very similar to that. But actions,
I'm the one that shows up. I'm the type of friend, my long-term friends will tell you, I'm not the consistent friend of hi, and what's going on in your life. But I'm the friend that, hey, you need something and something's going on, you can guarantee I'm coming.
Yeah, actions.
Yep.
A long way.
You can count on me. If you need something, I'll be there.
And the interesting thing about actions is, for me anyway, they have a very positive effect on my mental health as well. So, if I say I'm going to do something and I do it, I feel good about that. It goes a long way. Or, for example, back to the shovel in the driveway thing, I feel good if I shovel my neighbor's driveway when they didn't get the chance to. You know what I mean? To me, knowing that they're going to walk outside and go, oh, wow, like, this is really nice. Like, that makes me feel good about myself.
It goes
I don't
back
need to broadcast it.
Well,
it's just nice, right?
Right, what we were talking about last week when we were saying, like, you don't have to make the holiday season about buying gifts for people. Why not just do stuff like that? Like, why not give your time?
And it's interesting that you say that, because I know we've definitely had the conversation before. Just the capitalism that is
I can't
Christmas.
take it. I can't stand it.
And you know, my girlfriend and I have definitely talked about it a little bit too, in the fact where, you know, I've told her that, you know, buying gifts for people at Christmas makes me very uncomfortable.
Me too.
I mean, honestly, buying gifts for birthdays, anything makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, I like to think that I show that love and that compassion throughout the year.
Me
so to
too.
have it boil down to like, oh, we got me a really good, you know what I mean? Like, it makes me uncomfortable.
Because
and for me personally,
you know what it
makes
is?
me feel like it devalues everything else I've
Exactly.
done.
It makes me feel like there's a monetary value of how I feel about you.
Exactly. And I don't find that fair. And it has nothing to do, for me, about finances. It's not really about finances for me. It's more about the added pressure that I put on myself to find a gift that accurately is going to express how I feel. Like, I don't, it's a lot of pressure where I'd rather just be able to show it to you with, you know, quality time and, you know, acts of service and whatever these may be. Like, I'd rather
or making moments. How about taking that, whatever you were going to spend, well, not like that, but, you know, like, and go, like, skating or go, like, to a museum or go, you know, whatever.
Yep.
Why does it, completely. And then create a memory instead of something tangible that you're going to, after, you know, a couple months, you're going to be like, okay, I don't need this anymore.
Yeah, like, literally. Yeah, it's, you know, we've had that conversation where, you know, do we give, like, we have decided to give gifts. They're going to be relatively inexpensive and, you know, kind of just like a trivial kind of, it's just nice to unwrap something. But, you know, we decided that there's going to be no real emphasis on the gifts. Like, it's going to be much more about, you know, quality time and building memories and, you know, doing something, which I think is something that a lot of people could learn from. I think getting out of the Instagram world or the Facebook world and
so you can post your tree and then post the gifts under the tree and I just finished wrapping. Congratulations that you can wrap a gift. Congratulations.
I talked to a lot of people when I was doing a ton of hiking, and they were like, so, like, do you take that many photos? Like, oh, I didn't realize you hike that much. You never post any of it. And I'm just like, man, I don't grab my phone when I go hiking because I'm experiencing nature. You know what I mean? Like, I'm there to decompress.
Because you're not telling people what you're doing. You're not going, hey, guess what? This is what I'm doing.
I'm there to clear my head and, you know, enjoy the scenery wholeheartedly. You know, I don't need to capture it. I'm experiencing it. And for me personally, I find if I try to capture it, it takes away from the experience. So I just don't do it. But I think, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just getting in our own way. You and I have talked about this before. A lot of people, myself 100% included, we just have a tendency of, you know, getting in our own way when it comes to trying to achieve things or working towards goals.
Well, like, yesterday I put up these LED lights and I was so proud of myself because I'm like, wow, again, it's, you know, I know I'm not a big Christmas person, but I'm trying, and this is all self-motivated, so this isn't because of the pressure of other people. This is like, I'll do things in my own time and slowly. So I'm getting back a little bit, but I'm not going over the top. And so that's the bringing back to, don't let people pressure you if, you know, you're grieving during the Christmas season and, you know, you're feeling kind of like, because some people are really over the top and that's great. But if you're not feeling it, you don't have to justify how you're feeling to anybody. and you can just take baby steps, or you could also just create a little bit, maybe a new tradition, and do something small and take your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a Christmas decoration person, and we went out with really good friends of ours. They have 4 kids, and we went and cut down Christmas trees. And, you know, we were there for like an hour and a half and had an absolute blast with the kids. They had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. And my partner and I decided, like, we cut down and bought like a tiny little Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Like, just this little tiny thing. And we were like, okay, like, this is enough for us. We don't have a ton of space. And I was feeling it. It's rare. I'm not really a
I bought a Christmas tree.
Yeah, and
but it's real. It's outside, and it's in a pot, and that's going to be my Christmas tree forever.
Yeah, I love it. Like, we literally got one. We put it in a pot, and like we're just chilling with it. And like today, you know, right before the podcast, we went out and we did some errands, and you know, we got some bulbs and we got some lights, and you know, we're gonna decorate it and we're gonna do our little thing. But it's interesting. Like, I'm definitely opening myself up to the experience of it all, and the experience I find is worth having when you're in a positive state of mind. 100%, it is enjoyable, but it's not because we feel obligated or societal pressures to have the best tree. You know, there's nothing about. I highly doubt either one of us is going to post a photo of the tree.
Why
you know
not?
What I mean? Like, we might. I don't know, but you know, but a lot of it, it's not about that. A lot of it for us is just about, you know, the experience of doing these things together and kind of, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it is for me.
And again, I want to preface this by saying, if that brings you joy to post, I'm not anti-poster.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm just saying it's just, you have to just think of why you're doing the things you're doing. Are you doing it for yourself? Great. If you're just doing it for, I don't know, for some sort of quick, you know, validation from others, then you have to kind of like think to yourself, is that a healthy form? Do you need that validation? Do you constantly need that validation? And where is that coming from? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for me, is it just, you're just throwing it out in the world, or are you, you know, waiting for that dopamine serotonin hit of people liking your post?
And because and we'll get back to that, because on the other side, there's a strong correlation that when you don't get that, that's, you know, there's a mental illness side, right? Like, then you become depressed and sad, and you know, you spiral.
Oh, absolutely. It's, you know, now you're.
So if you're doing it for yourself, you don't care, and you're not looking for that.
Yep.
But if you're looking for that and you don't get it, you know, then.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, it's weird. Life's weird, right? Everything in moderation. If you're doing things, you know, there's nothing wrong with drinking if you can drink in a, you know, healthy manner. There's nothing wrong with anything if you can do it within moderation and healthy. It's just, if it becomes a thing that you feel obligated to do, if it becomes a thing that, you know, you get stressed out about taking the absolute perfect photo, and if you don't get the response you're looking for, you get upset. You know, these are just added stresses that you're putting on yourself, especially during the holiday season that's already stressful, that, you know, potentially you might want to have a look at.
And also, this is what happens. So, like, now it's compare, contrast, compete, right? So this is what causes also the depression in others. And I'm not saying, well, you have to care, but there's people who either can't afford a elaborate Christmas, right? Or there's people who, you know, are grieving, so they're not going to do the things like that. So this is what I'm saying. It becomes, where are you doing it again for yourself, or are you doing it to show, like, see, look at me, you know? Is there sort of like a, I don't know, kind of, and I don't want to say narcissistic thing, because I don't like to throw that word around, but I just feel like as long as you know why you're doing it and you're good with it, then do you.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. I think that's kind of what life's all about to a certain degree, right? Like, if it's something that brings you joy and you like doing it, like, go for it.
I don't know. It's just I figured that we would learn something from this pandemic, because at the beginning it was we're all in this together, and then it was toilet paper shortages and people hoarding, and then it was
I feel like it went from like we're all in this together to like
every man for themselves.
Divided society history.
Then it was, then you used to see the masks in the parking lot and the gloves just thrown on the ground. Then it was shortage of vaccines. Then it was anti-vaxxers. It just seems like it's like a revolving, and it doesn't seem like where's this all in this together stuff and helping your neighbor out. I felt like there was a moment in time where it really felt like that. Like, it really felt like, wow, like, we're getting back to the basics. And now it just seems like we're back to our regular schedule program.
Yeah, I agree.
And, well, I hope some people learned from how it is, and I'm sure people have, like, I'm sure there's some positives of this. Definitely career choices, as your case in point.
Yeah, I think they're like calling it like the Great Migration or something. Like, I heard
the resignation, the Great Resignation.
Oh, the Great Resignation. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And just like there's a ton of people out there that are just changing careers. Also,
it's because also too people are recognizing like great leaders and poor leaders, and how people manage their company during the pandemic and what the expectation was. And a lot of people were overworked, and they and there's no, like, there was, I guess, no reward. Like, I think I saw something on LinkedIn where people were like, I left my job because I don't want a bonus of a pizza party. Thanks. Like, it's just that people not being recognized for their work and contribution.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, one of the reasons that I decided to leave a decently paying job was, honestly, I felt like I was worth more than what I was getting. And some people might say that's narcissistic.
No, it isn't. That's that's not. How is that? How is it narcissistic? I don't know. When
I don't know.
That's a definite other. We could talk about that next week, because oh my gosh, I have lots to say about time and value and money. Right? Like, are you worth?
That's
remember,
a great topic.
We broke that down. Like, are you worth? Like, you're sacrificing an hour of your time. Is it worth $20? Is it worth $30? Is it worth 40? Like, what is the breakdown of your time?
Yeah, like, I know for a fact my old employer was in business for like 25 years, and he told myself that at one point in time, my dad, my younger brother, and myself all went to go work there at the same time. And we were there for like 3 years, I think. And he said the 3 years that we were there were by far his most profitable years he ever had, period. But, like, did we get bonuses? Did we get any?
Did you do? Right.
You know what I mean? And, like, I don't want to sound conceited, but at the same time, it's like, there's, I understand there has to be a difference. He's the business owner. He's the one putting up the equity. He's the one that's putting up all the risk.
But he wouldn't be anywhere without the people.
Exactly. So I find there needs to be a balance. I understand he, just from a sheer point of risk analysis, should be making more money than I am, 100%. But at the same time, I feel like there needs to be a certain level of, I look at it as like an appreciation of like, hey, thanks for everything that you guys do every day. Like, here's a little extra on the top. Or like, hey, you guys crushed that job. I made a $50,000 profit in 2 weeks. Take a week off paid. Those type of things to me, they go a long way for staff morale. And one thing I have learned is, people that are happy and enjoy working for you, they're going to work a lot harder than people that aren't. So it's a very interesting dynamic. I feel like, I'm hopeful that there's going to be a very, a shift in that direction. And I think a lot of people are starting to recognize that, and are deciding to change careers. And, all the power to them. Like, do something that you feel like, you're being valued. I think that goes so far in, mental health in the workplace is to truly feel like you are valued in what you do. At least for me anyway, that goes a long way.
Well,
and I'm sorry, but like one of the few ways to show that you value somebody in the workplace is through currency. It's through money. It's it's like, hey, I really, you did a great job.
Well,
here's a little extra. I don't need to do it, but I want to do it because you earned it.
Here's a reframe in the exact first topic that we were talking about. If you don't believe in yourself, right? So like being self-employed is scary. I'm not going to lie. Because you are completely 100% investing in yourself. So whether you work or you're responsible for your income, right? So if it not like at work, because for you can't, but a lot of like certain people, like if they're working in a company setting, whether you work hard, if you're salaried or you don't work hard, you're still getting paid. Right?
Yeah.
But when you're self-employed, you have to work and you have to make sure, because you're only relying on yourself, right? Like you're your own boss. So putting the reframe is, if I could do so well at my other job and just get whatever, $25, $30 an hour, whatever it was, and I was skilled and I was great at my job, why can't you earn unlimited with yourself once you put in the time and invest in yourself?
I think that right there would be the argument as to why I truly decided to leave my job 100%. And I think a lot of it has to come down to, and like not to sound conceited, but I worked in a union environment where, after you finished your apprenticeship, you got paid the same as the guy next to you, regardless of skill level or, your work drive or whatever you want to say, how much you're accomplishing in a day, which is great. I'm not bashing unions by any means. I mean, they have some really good benefits, I think, to them. There's also some really big drawbacks, and the drawbacks are you're going to get a lot of dead wood that, takes advantage of the system because they can. And that's just reality. You're going to get that any system, anywhere you go. But for me, I got annoyed of just looking at people to my left or to my right who could not keep up with me, could not put in the pace that I was putting in, but they were taking home the exact same dollar amount I was. And to me, like, it just got to a point of being honestly frustrating. It was just like, I feel like I'm worth more than this. So, like, how about I try something where my earning potential is only limited by what I'm willing to do or by what, amount of time I'm willing to put into it. Like, it's like the extreme override. It's like, I feel like I'm worth more. Now I'm in a situation where I can be worth as much as I want to be worth, but I have to put in that work. I have to prove to myself and to everybody else that, yeah, I am worth this. So it's really interesting and exciting, right? Like, it's daunting because, it really does all come down to you. There is no safety net here. Very similar to you.
Yep, I'm like, okay, it's me versus me, and so, okay, I'm all in. And I feel, I'm sorry to think, I feel as though there's something that clicks. So when, you make that decision, like, okay, I'm all in, right? Like, this is what I'm doing, I'm believing in myself and I'm just going for it. I think that, you know, we talk about the universe or manifesting. I think that's when it's like, okay, he or she is serious. Let's do this. And oh, sorry, not he, just or she. They are serious, right? Like, okay, I don't want to leave anyone out. But yeah, and I think that's when it's like, okay, we're gonna allow this to happen now, because when I told you, when you don't believe in yourself, it's not gonna happen.
No, there'll be too many roadblocks. Most of them set by you.
Yeah, because you are getting in your own way. You have to get out of your own way.
I think there's a lot of people are, myself included, are terrified to risk, you know, what they have accomplished or built so far. May that be financially or, you know, in the career that they have chosen, whatever that may be. The only thing that kind of keeps me going is knowing that anybody that has amounted to a certain level of success or financial freedom, those are people that took risks where nobody else would, right? You have to set yourself apart. You have to be able to go, you know,
and
what?
You're never going to, and this is it's not a fallacy. You're never going to be wealthy as an employee.
No, it's impossible unless
it's like
you did some really exceptional investing and something went your way. The only true way to really build wealth is you need to own something.
Right.
It may not be, you know, real estate or investments or a company, whatever that may be. You need to be able to profit off of the success of, you know, multiple people or have multiple forms of income coming in.
That's what I mean.
It's really the only way to really grow.
They were saying it. You have to have multiple sources. In this world, I'm not talking about in like our parents' time. I'm talking about in this time. You have to have multiple sources of income. You have to be making money when you're sleeping. That's the key.
Yeah, those mailbox checks go a long way. Yep.
And so, I mean, that's how you build it.
It's something that I've been talking about. I mean, I've been talking about getting a part-time job, something until, you know, whatever it may be, something that doesn't really take that much mental fortitude, something that I can just kind of go do and earn a little extra cash on the side, and you know what I mean? And I'm starting to realize, like, okay, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need, you know, I want to keep going with the career choice. You know, we're getting ready to rent out certain parts of our home. You know what I mean? Like, just anything to start bringing in extra money that eliminates our living expenses. Like, for me, the goal is to get the living expenses as close to zero as possible and use that extra money to build equity somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where we are right now. But we can get into that later.
Yeah, we could do that next because, like...
We hit, like, 17 different randomized topics. Everybody's...
What were we talking about initially?
I have no idea. Or left and right brain. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was left and right brain.
This is how we communicate when we do see each other, everybody. We start on
this is like, okay,
randomly roll in.
Where were we?
I don't know. I like that, though. I'm always a big fan of having a non-constructive conversation with somebody where, like, it can just roll. I feel like we can get a lot accomplished.
And that realistically is what therapy is.
I believe so, yeah, definitely. I think that you just allow the conversation to go where you and, you know, everybody kind of, it just flows. It just flows. And then hopefully, you know, there's some gems out of the conversation that you can pick through and kind of learn from yourself a little bit.
Well, that's basically, well, that's what I think it is. I think, you know, just like anything else. So if it's obviously a serious mental illness, you go to a psychiatrist, right? There's like different levels of what you may need, and that there's people and individuals that can help you depending on what you need. But counseling is like and therapy is just this, right? It's let's find some tools to help you unpack whatever what you've been carrying around.
Oh yeah, like it goes a long way having somebody that is unconditionally, there to listen and accept whatever you have to say, and then like help you work through some of the stuff that you may not have even realized, and you acknowledge. Like, I mean, there's a couple times in the conversation we had today where you mentioned something in the conversation that kind of, oh my God, something clicked in my mind, and I realized, oh, this is the first time I really have ever 100% been out on my own. I'm used to having my dad there, even though I'm quite independent at work, to kind of fall back on if I had any questions or anything like that.
You're literally out of the nest right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm almost 30, so like my brain's just been like, oh, you've been out of the nest for a long time, but really, no.
So now you have to fly on your own.
Exactly. And it's stuff like that that's just, it's a really interesting new perspective on an issue that might shine light on it enough that you're able to kind of get through that. So yeah, big fan of therapy.
It's right, exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's it though. Before we get rambling on something completely different, what do you think? Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think we're at the 1 hour and 26 mark. So.
Wow! If anybody stuck through this hour and a half of rambling,
congratulations!
Yeah, good for you. That's impressive, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye everybody.